When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
Well, it's more than 46 years later, and one man has finally been cleared of a double murder. For 46 years, Claude Paquin maintained his innocence in a case that saw him wrongfully committed of a double murder. Now his fight for justice has finally been won. Paquin is now 81 years old, and he was acquitted of all charges after new evidence surfaced, including discredited testimony of a key informant that served to clear his name. His acquittal marks the end of a long battle that began with a life sentence for the 1978 killings of a Quebec couple. Speaking now with Nicholas St-Jacques, he's vice president of the Innocence Project. Welcome to the show, Nicholas.
Hi.
Can you walk us through the details of this case a little bit and how they were able to convict Claude Paquin in the first place?
Yeah. So the conviction of Mr. Paquin occurred in 1983. There was a trial with Mr. Paquin, and he had also co-accused. So at the time, the key evidence for the Crown was the testimony of Bernard Provençal, who was a collaborating witness. So he was a witness, basically, who was working with the state, who gave testimony in exchange for some advantages and benefits. And that witness essentially said that Mr. Paquin ordered the killing of one of the victims, and the other victim was also killed right after because she knew too much, basically. So Paquin was supposed to have ordered that killing, and was supposed the murders were supposed to have been committed at Paquin's house in his basement. So that was the testimony of that Mr. Provençal, and later on, many years after the trial, we were able to retrieve new pieces of evidence that contradicted the version of Mr. Provençal. One of the co-accused of Mr. Paquin gave a statement in which he implicated himself in the disposal of the bodies. But he said, you know what, I was there, and the murders didn't occur at Mr. Paquin's residence. They occurred somewhere else, and Mr. Paquin wasn't even there. He wasn't even aware of the killings. The other co-accused was able actually to plead guilty on a lower offense. He was able to plead guilty for complicity after the fact, so for disposal of the bodies as well. But what's interesting is that Mr. Provençal, the collaborating witness, said during the trial that that co-accused was the shooter. He actually shot the victim twice in the head. And the information the Crown received after is that, no, it's not the case. This co-accused didn't do that. He was only helping disposing the bodies. So it did contradict a lot the testimony of Mr. Provençal, and also received information about advantages and benefits that Mr. Provençal received for his testimony that were not disclosed to the defense at the time of the trial. So in a nutshell, these were the new pieces of evidence that were brought before the Minister of Justice of Canada. We decided to order a new trial in last April, and finally it ended yesterday. 2 days ago, sorry.
My goodness. And so this Monsieur Paquin, the Claude Paquin, obviously would have been maintaining his innocence all along. And how for 46 years, how did he live with that of his innocence and yet being in prison?
It's a very good question. He's been living through hell, and when he was in court 2 days ago and he was acquitted, the first thing he said to the judge was, you just delivered me from hell.
Yeah.
Just hearing the words acquittal, he's been waiting for these words for many years, for 4 decades. And, he did 18 years in prison. He had to live with conditions for, almost half of his life. And today he's 81, and, a lot of his life, was behind bars or under the umbrella of the state. So he was always feeling like he couldn't do whatever he wants. And now he's a free man. Now he can start a new life basically, even if it's late in the process, but still before at least he can tell he's innocent. He's been saying that for 40 years. But now not only him can tell that he's innocent, but also a judge said it.
Yeah.
And
that makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
exactly. For sure.
And
now, in light of the new testimony that's brought forward, are there other people that are going to be sent to jail now?
I don't know. Not necessarily at this point in time. I don't know. I cannot answer that question. If there's going to be an examination into what happened during the trial, if some mistakes were done, or how the Crown will deal with it. I don't know at this point. We're 41 years later also. So, I don't know if there's an interest on that side for the police and the Crown.
Right. It would be almost impossible to obviously investigate. There'd be no evidence or anything like that. So I guess it all hangs on testimony at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And Mr. Provençal, at the time, even though he was implicated in the crime, he was collaborating with the state, and in exchange for his cooperation, he wasn't accused for that crime. So I would be extremely surprised at this point if the state would go back against Mr. Provençal. But you know what? I'm not making that decision. So.
For sure. Now, you're with the Innocence Project. You're vice president of that project. I took a look at your website, and on the website it says that the Innocence Project has helped free more than 250 innocent people from prison. How many other similar cases are you investigating at the moment?
Well, in Quebec, I think the website you looked at is
the New York one, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So in the States, it's a bit different than here in Canada. Here in Canada, there's about one case every year across Canada where the Minister of Justice will order either a new trial or send the file to the Court of Appeal for a reopening of the case, basically. So it's very rare in Canada that we see that type of situation. The reason is probably because there's not enough people who actually ask the minister to review their case. It's a very, very long process. So in the case of Mr. Paquin, for example, it took about 10 years for the Innocence Project to, just assemble all the pieces of the big puzzle and eventually present arguments before the minister. And then it took 4 years before the Minister of Justice for him to decide what he's going to do with this case. So, it's a 14, 16 years process, in the case of Mr. Paquin. So, you need people like him, who are determined to have justice in their case and are going to be able to wait and be very patient, because it's very difficult to get through all the process.
I would imagine that often it's spurred by new evidence coming to light. So sometimes that can be unexpected. So in his case, it was as a result of new testimony. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. New statements and new information that changed I would say the picture of the evidence, yeah.
And sometimes it can even be material evidence because now with, DNA and so on, I imagine that sometimes evidence that wasn't necessarily available back at the time of the trial can suddenly resurface and throw a completely different light on situations. Have you seen that happen?
Well, in Quebec, we didn't have any situation like that led to a miscarriage of justice that was discovered. However, you're right. The technology and expert evidence is very different today from what it was like 10 years, 20 years ago. And we in one of our case, we have provided new expert evidence, not about the DNA, but about telecoms, and how the cell towers work, at the time, just 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, it was very, very different. If you remember in the 90s, you had a cell phone, it was fixed to your car. And today, it's not like that. It's not working like that anymore. And the technology was very different. And so we provided that type of evidence to the Minister of Justice in one of our cases. So because it changed, and now we understand more about how cell towers work and everything. But you're right, DNA, there's a big difference today what we can do with that than at the time. The problem is that with DNA, you need DNA on the crime scene to be able to link it to somebody, and it's not every crime scene that has DNA on it, and that you're going to find somebody to compare with what we see on the crime scene. So it's not every time we can use that, but of course, all the advancement in the technology and expert evidence makes a huge difference in our case. Yeah.
Well, thanks for speaking with us about that, Nicolas St-Jacques.
Thanks to you for having me on the show.
My pleasure. Nicolas St-Jacques is vice president of the Innocence Project. We wish all our best to Claude Paquin, who has now been acquitted after a long battle that began with his life sentence in 1978 that's now been overturned.